We get into Shenmue 2, let's jump back to all of your first voice acting roles at SEGA. So starting off with Eric, you voiced Jackie Bryant in 1996's Virtua Fighter 3.
Is that the first one?
I guess so.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong.
He says it. I trust him.
Yeah. So was this your earliest role in a SEGA game?
Could have been. I think that's right. I don't always know the makers of the game. Sometimes we just get called in to do voices for games, and we don't always know who the business behind it.
Or the title.
Or the title. And we're not even, there's a lot of, Lisle and I were just talking earlier, but I'd say probably 20% of the games that we've voiced, we're not credited on the credits. Yeah. We don't know the title. They don't give us any credit. It's just all top secret at the time they're making them. And then nobody gets around to really telling us or crediting us. So, but it sounds like that would have been right, because I know that was recorded at SEGA Studios in Otori.
Yeah.
And I know that was with Suzuki-san.
Oh, wow. So how did you get the initial role? Like, obviously you went to them, correct? Or were you a part of a
They went to my
agency? Okay. Yeah.
And so the way it works is you sign up with various agents and you give your kind of profile and, most importantly, your voice demo. And then they shop you around, or where people just kind of come to them. They have the shop, and companies, whether it's SEGA or Namco or something like that, they would go to the voice agents and say, we're looking for people for these different kinds of characters. And they go, well, these are the different people we have who can do those kinds of characters. And then they listen to the voice samples, and they go like, oh, yeah, okay, that guy would be good for Jackie. That probably is what they said for me. And then they call me in, and then you get the part. You don't have to audition, because your voice demo, recorded voice, is your audition.
Right.
And so I just went to the studio, and they showed me a picture of Jackie, and they said, this is the guy. He's this 20-year-old cocky race car driver. And I gave them some voices. I think the first voice I gave them was something a little more like a Ren kind of voice, or a little bit rough. And they said, no, he's young. He's young and cocky. And so I just kind of give him a higher voice, and they go, okay, a little bit more, and then it became kind of like this. And it's like, yeah, come on. You can't beat me.
That's awesome.
And,
so,
I feel like I'm standing still or something like that. So many different interesting lines Jackie had.
So what was the process like? Would they give you like a list of like needs? So like we need like damage, like victory punch.
Exactly. You have the vocal lines that you give, and then you have a lot of just reaction sounds and exertion sounds. And it's interesting. Some of them will say like, that you're punching, it'll say like a light punch, medium punch, heavy punch, kick, whatever. And you give them, 3 or 4 versions of that, and then they go, okay, we got at least one we like. But then some of them, like, especially the receiving ones, are kind of funky, because it's like, quick kick to the head.
Like, oh, okay.
Haven't been kicked in the head before, but okay. And there's a sharp kick to the head. I'm like, all right, what's the difference between those? And so some of them, you just have to stand there. And, Corey and I, especially, we did a lot of work together in the studio. So we're like standing there next to each other. And we're, when it's running, we're like running. And like when we were handcuffed together, we're like holding our arms out like this, and our arms are getting so tight, but we got to do it, because that's giving credence to the character. They can feel it. If we feel the pain, they'll feel the pain.
Right, because people forget that Corey was not in any fighting games per se, but Shenmue in and itself has the fighting game mechanic within it. So you're not only doing almost a RPG or a free game, but you're also doing a fighting game within that.
Yeah, so sometimes you're giving your hits, sometimes you're receiving hits, and sometimes it's just pain or dying or whatever they need.
Right.
And that's really a workout.
How long does that recording process take for like one game?
It depends on the game, but mostly that will take a couple hours just for that one thing.
Right.
Of just kind of thing.
Yes, yeah.
And then the dialogue is what takes longer.
I see.
And the thing with Virtua Fighter is there wasn't a lot of dialogue, like in Shenmue or something, but it was. So I think we recorded that in one day.
Yeah.
For the Virtua Fighter.
Wow. Were you together in the sessions, or were you aware of each other?
Always alone.
Always alone.
He was aware of me.
Oh.
I was aware.
Because
I could smell her as she left the studio.
I'm the pretty one in the family.
That's true. That's
the better
true.
one in the family.
Well, I think Lisle wants us to talk about her now. So,
Always.
Lisle, and correct me if I'm wrong again, Lisle, your earliest role in a SEGA game appears to be Crazy Taxi.
Correct.
In which you played.
Well, once more, from what I know.
From what she knows, yes. You played Gina.
Yes.
So how did you land that role, and what was the recording process like for that compared to a fighting game?
Crazy Taxi was crazy. Just kidding. It was a lot of fun because actually one of the companies that was casting for Crazy Taxi is a guy who is considered to be almost like the Ryan Seacrest of radio in Tokyo.
Wow.
His name is Chris Pepler, and it was his Chris Pepler. Remember, it was like his Chris Pepler office.
Great voice.
Yes. Oh, hello. Welcome to Tokyo Hot 100. But he was also kind of a mentor of mine, because I came from radio, and so I started working in radio with him when I was like 18. And then he was in charge of this, and his manager reached out to me and said, hey, we're casting for this. We'd like you to come in. I'm like, oh, yeah, totally awesome. And I get there, and it's like Brian Burton Lewis, who does Axel, who, fun fact, which I've told some of you, I grew up with. So that was kind of bizarre. I babysat him.
And he was the voice of the carnival
narrator.
barker too,
Yes.
or whatever. Like, hey, come on over, have some fun. Yeah,
Yes, exactly. So it was kind of it was almost already like this family atmosphere. Like Mibu, who's also in it, is another really good friend of mine for radio. There were a lot of radio people in that game, actually. So for me, it was just an incredible experience. And then the first time I heard Crazy Taxi, and I mentioned, I think, to a few of you, but I was on a date.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that, yeah.
Yes, in Tokyo.
A crazy date.
A crazy date.
In a text.
Yes. So he came to pick me up. I just finished DJing, and he came to pick me up, and we were going to go see a movie. He's like, hey, I want to go to an arcade, because he's a big gamer. I want to go to an arcade. There's like this really cool game I'm really into now. And I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, sure. So I go in. But once more, as Eric was saying earlier, we do one project and then we kind of forget about it because we also are not given information. So a lot of times we don't know the title or anything about the game. We just go in there, do our thing, and then we forget about it. So I had forgotten about it. And so I'm there and I'm watching him play this game and I'm listening and going, man, that voice sounds really familiar. And then all of a sudden, I was just like, oh my gosh, that's me! And I freaked out. And I was like, DJ, we have to go. And so we ran out of the arcade. He's like, what in the heck is wrong with you? Needless to say, we did not have another date after that. But that's the first time I heard my voice.
Wow. And Gina was playable in the sequels, but you didn't come back for any additional work. It was just like
they didn't bring any of us back.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
I don't know why. I don't know.
Because
No, you know why? Please.
Well,
tell
because
me.
they. What a lot of game.
Why didn't you bring me back, Corey?
What? So I'll explain it.
Absolutely.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of times with a lot of the games that happens for like big game companies and stuff like that, you'll come in and you'll do a voice like Jackie or whatever, and then SEGA just owns that. Like forever,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yes,
they will put that voice in multiple games.
Oh, for sure.
For decades, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's
They just do a buyout.
Yeah, because I mean, in the case of Crazy Taxi, they just built on the cast. They'd add another 3 or 4 characters every game.
That's true.
And we talked about this in the past when I had you on, where I would tell you, like, you would go to these events, people would tell you how much you love love your character, but I mean, as far as the work you did, it was, you know, years ago, and you only were in a studio for 2 hours. It's just amazing that you can do, not saying it's like a minimal amount of effort, but it's definitely a short amount
of effort.
Of time. Yeah, and yet here you are, and people are still remembering these characters.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's really wonderful, and, you know, for me, like, because I do go to quite a few anime conventions and everything, like I told you, and I mean, I was just in Saudi Arabia like 2 weeks ago in Jeddah, and so many people there loved Crazy Taxi, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're my childhood," and I'm thinking, is that a good thing, a bad thing? So when you were a little kid, I was already working.
How are the drivers out there? Are they crazy drivers? Maybe that's what they were connected.
Exactly. Maybe the whole city.
This is normal driving, you know,
because there were some crazy drivers. Yeah.
So, Corey, you, of course, play Ryo Hazuki in all 3 Shenmue games, and from what I've read, it was a much different process for you in landing the role. So, can you tell us briefly how that happened?
Correct.
Yeah. On landing the role.
On landing the role, yes.
Well, I mean, basically what they just described is pretty much normal for every game, but Shenmue, like, came in and broke all of the rules as far as, like, because normally they're in a studio alone by themselves doing their voicing. No, in Shenmue we were all together. Like we were able to voice together. Like Eric just talked about.
We did a lot together.
Yeah,
because we're in a lot of scenes together.
Yeah. So Sega has this huge, you know, room that you could fit an entire band in. Yeah. You know, and they had multiple voice actors in there at the same time, which is just completely unheard of most of the time. And so that was great, being able to be with Lisle, and, you know, when we're doing scenes as Joy, you know, together. It's like, it's cool because voice actors normally don't get a chance to be together, to really
play off each other,
feel that energy off of the next person. You know what I mean? So, especially when they're doing a big scene, you know, like the scene at the beginning of the game. Everybody here's played it, right? No spoilers, right? I mean, a big death scene at the beginning of the game. Oh God! But those are really obviously pivotal, important moments, and they wanted the actors to be together, and that's one of the reasons what makes Shenmue so special. You know,
absolutely,
that we had that opportunity. But as far as landing the role, So as you mentioned, I was. In another lifetime, I was a dancer. Gosh, about 20 years. Yeah, that was forever ago. I was literally doing ballet and modern dance, and I was performing in New York City, and, you know, professional, doing all that kind of stuff. And I was looking for some extra work, and I saw there was a publication called The Backstage, and it was literally like a newspaper. At the time, I don't know if you guys know what newspapers are.
I think it's still around too.
Oh, is it? Somewhere.
Somewhere.
But yeah, it's like a physical publication, and they actually have. It's almost like ads. You know what I mean? And it was just a little kind of ad that said, you know. And this is another thing too. You're talking about how secretive things are. It didn't say anything about who was making it, what the project was. Nothing. The only thing it said was. 3 to 4 months in Japan for a voiceover and a major video game project, and I was like,
"Hello,
sounds pretty cool." Yeah, you know, for a 20-year-old guy to be like, "Dude, go live in Tokyo and do voiceovers," and I'll give it a shot. Never done it before, but shoot, let's see. And, you know, the thing is that. I'm a longtime stage actor. I had done TV and film and all that kind of stuff. Had never done voiceover before, so I kind of like just brazenly went in and tried to do it. But I just pulled upon my, you know, plethora of work that I had done before, plus my love for the genre already. I'm a big video game fan, anime fan. You know, I just kind of pulled from that love that I already had and just decided to go for it. Just kind of, you know. Just go for it, see what happens.
So when you moved out there, then, especially for 2, you were kind of like, your character was out of his element. He was in a new country. Yeah. Did you pull from your own experiences with that, as being someone in Japan?
Yeah.
Voicing someone who's going from Japan to China?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Short answer is yes, absolutely. With Hazuki himself, there's I pulled from a lot of my own personal experience. Again, talking about the movies that I loved, old samurai films and stuff like that. That's why Hazuki has that very stoic character, that tone that he has. I was pulling a lot from old samurai films and the martial art experience that I've had since I've been 7 years old. I'm a constant student of martial arts, so when he leaves his home country for the first time in Shenmue 2, going to China, absolutely, I have that experience of being in another country where people don't speak your native language and trying to navigate your way around, and sometimes you meet some nefarious people who take you out and take you out drinking, and then you wake up 3 days later not knowing where you are. And
well, let's talk about that nefarious person.
Part of your training, my son.
So Eric and Corey, so you two first worked together on Shenmue. Eric played two very different characters important to Ryo's journey. We had the lovable Fuku-san, and then the very cold Chen.
Not so lovable.
Not so lovable Chen.
I think he's lovable.
He's like,
just don't know how to love
He's just misunderstood.
He's just the dirty Harry of. He's the Chinese dirty.
He's
Harry.
the Chinese dirty Harry.
Chinese dirty Harry.
So were there challenges in playing this dual role in the game? Two very different characters?
Actually, no. It would have been a challenge playing very similar characters.
Yeah.
And so I was so happy that the three characters I got in Shenmue were so different. So, I could just be like a nice guy in Fuku-san trying to help out Ryo because I'm like a little brother, and be careful. I want him to be okay, and I'll take care of Ine-san, and you go out and find your dad's killer. And so he's just a nice guy. And whenever I let Fuku-san come out to play, he made me a better person. Because he's such a sweetheart. He's just such a nice, good guy. And so when when Suzuki-san asked me to do the character, I said, do you want this kind of voice, this kind of voice? He kind of goes a little bit more like this, a little bit more like that. And then just say he's just a really sweet, kind of naive guy.
Yeah.
But he still has a lot of passion. And so we clicked on the voice, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Once you get it, you got it. And then Guizan, I just thought he's just the Chinese Clint Eastwood, Yeah. And so when Guizan speaks, he doesn't really open his mouth. He just speaks through his teeth. And if I just squint a little bit, I say, no. Oh. And, he says things like, no, that's my line.
Water down.
It's okay.
That was a QTE, a failed QTE.
He's just fascinated because, he'll take on 10 guys and his jacket never even comes unbuttoned. And so I'm just looking at this guy, he's just cool on ice, and just that's him. But at least I hope you get the feeling, because that's what I had, is that deep down he's a good guy. And he's like, you want to learn some new moves or what? He's trying to help Ryo out, but he's kind of getting tired of him being such a pissant.
He's real dedicated to his father too.
Yeah, because I think he understands the same kind of father-son relationship.
Yeah.
And so I think he really sympathizes with Ryo.
Yeah, I absolutely love Fuku-san. I remember when I was playing the game, I must have been in high school, and we would always talk like Fuku-san. Ryo, don't! There's a very, I don't know, he almost was like the Milhouse of Shenmue.
He is. He is. And some people have said, he's kind of too whiny and weeny. And
no.
I'm like, well, that's what I was told to play him as, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I didn't feel he was.
No.
I felt he was just a really kind of a nice, innocent guy, who's just trying to do his best and help out his big brother, kind of thing.
Absolutely. And speaking of his big brother, so when you were working on the first game, then would you do all of the interactions between Fuku-san and Ryo separate, or would they kind of jump around the script? What was the?
It does jump around, because some scenes is just your one-off take line. They just need 30 lines of just you, because it might be with somebody, it might be with Ine-san, it might just be, you don't know. And they might use that same line in many scenes.
Right.
So those are just knockoff ones they need you to have in the tank.
So the dialogue trees would kind of be done on their own for each character, and then the
Then
cutscenes
if the
would
dialogue needs interaction
I see.
between the characters, then we would do that.
Right, especially when you're like cutting each other off, that can always be difficult.
Yeah.
Excuse me, like sometimes you'll have the dialogue cut short, and
Right.
then the character will start talking, and it doesn't really line up. But I
Right.
can imagine.
I'll be like, but what do you think about? Come on, Fukusan, stop it. You know.
Yeah,
Something
yeah.
like that. Yeah.
So Shenmue 2, it brought Lisle into the fold with her role as Joy, as well as
Shuing
Hong, and the villain Yuan.
Yuan. Yeah.
So Lisle, how did you find your way into the Shenmue franchise, and do you remember when you first met Corey?
Yes.
Oh.
I totally remember. I was like, oh, 21 years old, young boy.
I was fresh faced.
He still looks fabulous. Yes, I loved Corey. I loved meeting him. It was fascinating for me, I think, because and I don't think I've even actually mentioned this ever, but for me, I grew up in Tokyo. Right, so Tokyo was kind of all that I ever knew. I went to international school, so I mean, obviously, I knew a lot of people like me who grew up there. But I think you were one of the first people that I worked closely with that had moved to Japan, who was kind of, young person moved to Japan for like a project like this, and not like in the business, where you get for work or whatever. So I think you were one of the first people that, for me, so it was really fascinating for me because you had a very different path where you were moving from the States to Japan, someplace you had never lived before. So that was really fascinating for me.
And it played up the character dynamic because you're like, go over to this hotel, and
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, and I loved, and I think I still remember, I think, the audition going to SEGA, because we did, like Eric was mentioning, like we went to SEGA so many times. It was one of my favorite studios to go to.
Yeah.
They were very friendly, like we all knew the engineers, and of course in the lobby they had some of their old school arcade games and
so
stuff like
fun.
that. Yeah. So it was always one of my favorite places to go. So I went. Did you audition in person? I know I went to SEGA and I had to audition. You didn't have to audition.
I don't think
for
I
one?
auditioned. I think they just took
Got
me.
it. Yeah. So I actually had to go in and read for them, and then found out what characters I was cast as. So I did have to audition, and there were lots of people there that were auditioning. I think IMO, which is kind of
Sorry, not a good
crazy agency.
They just take anybody and just
They just put
throw 'em
everyone
a
in there.
room.
Exactly.
Go!
So they were also there. So they're, there were
Right.
some freaks and crazies, but yeah, it was really wonderful experience for me. And like both Corey and Eric said, a lot of times with video games, you're in there in the booth by yourself, and which is fine. And we can obviously handle that kind of situation, but when you actually get to interact with someone, there's just a whole nother level of obviously believability, and it's so much fun for us.
So did any of you ever interact with the Japanese voice cast? Because they were also recording in the same studios, I'd suspect.
No,
No?
just separately.
That's
right?
interesting.
I mean, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I've never really worked with a Japanese voice actor.
Yeah.
Unless it's an educational project,
Yeah.
and it's a textbook,
Right.
Yeah.
and then they'll say, "Hi, ichiban," it's number one kind of thing.
Though in the case of Virtua Fighter 3, weren't you? It was you, but then a lot lot of Japanese voice actors, correct?
Well, it's
But you were
it's a
separate.
completely separate game.
Right,
kind
I
of
got
thing.
it. Yeah.
They record their game, and
Yeah.
then months later we record our game.
Yeah.
kind of
Right,
thing.
because
already done.
it was unique with Shenmue as well, because I believe in the Japanese language one, there was a character who spoke English, right? Mark?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the forklift guy. And it always kind of threw me off because I played the imported version. Yeah. It's very interesting. So Shenmue, it's synonymous with the Dreamcast, but the English version of Shenmue 2 never actually appeared on the console, though I think fans have made it happen since then. It was the Xbox where your work first appeared. and later in the remastered versions for modern hardware. So at the time, were any of you aware of where your voices would finally end up? Were you aware you were voicing an Xbox game?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, remember, I'm a big gamer, you know.
Yeah.
Big gamer.
Yeah. So yeah, I you know, I had multiple game systems, and in fact, that was one of my big motivations of finally picking up the Xbox, because I had multiple systems already. And it's like, okay, it's time to get an Xbox now, because
I want to get myself.
So yeah, and I had been aware of where the English voices were going, and you know, as far as Europe and all that kind of stuff is concerned, or as far as like what we're not getting in, you know, in the States. So yeah, I then realized, of course, through the whole network of awesome Shenmue fans letting us know
Totally.
where everything's going to end up as well.
Yeah.
Because sometimes they'll still tell me things that I'm like, oh wow, really?
Yeah.
I gotta look. Oh, okay, cool. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they Shenmue fans are so awesome. They often know more than I do. Which
They,
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
they
There's some in this
always know
audience
more
right
than
now.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure. That's one of the reasons why I picked up an Xbox finally. So.
Wow. Well, they sold one Xbox then, thanks.
Yeah,
to,
just
Yeah.
Mission accomplished.
Eric, you continued on in Shenmue 2 as Wu Ying Ren, a fan favorite character, a new character who acted as a friendly rival to Ryo. I guess in today's language it would be like the shadow to Ryo's Sonic.
Frenemies.
Yeah, so how did your past work as Fuku-san?
It was a bromance.
Yeah, bromance.
It was totally bromance.
So how did your past roles in Shenmue affect your approach to Ren? Was there any connection there? Did you try to actively avoid certain character traits to make him unique?
Well, as we said earlier, they were all three very different characters in personality and things. I think I had to be careful not to let Guizan's voice go, not to let Ren's voice go over into Guizan. Because Guizan was like this. And Ren I just had to add Ren a little bit, screw him a little bit there.
Add a little alcohol.
But,
Alcohol.
I think that helps, yeah. But I think one time somebody asked me, how did you come up with Ren's voice? And I thought it's because of the two Jacks. Because at first I was trying to think of, I always try to think like Guizan's like Clint Eastwood kind of thing. And I was thinking, well, Ren's a little bit more kind of a tough, kind of streetwise guy, but not always so bright, you know? So I'm like, well, when you got a stormy night and you're going down the highway in the Pork Chop Express, you know, just tell him Jack Burton's on the line. You know? And so I thought, Jack Burton, that's good, like strong, tough, kind of stupid guy. But means well.
Really stupid.
And then I thought, well, but I wanted to make him a little bit more dimensional. So I gave him the second Jack. And so I had him start out like Jack Burton and then end up a little bit like Jack Nicholson.
Oh, okay. Nice.
Because I thought he was also a little crazy.
Okay.
You know? So he starts a sentence like this and he ends up like this.
Sweet.
And so that's Ren.
Nice.
Yeah.
The story of the two Jacks.
The two Jacks. Have you heard that before?
No, that's the first time.
Either.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, during Shenmue 2, there was that epic scene racing through the building, handcuffed. I do believe Yuan was there, so it was a big epic moment where all three of you were voicing characters.
Yes.
Did you ever share the studio together for those scenes, all three of you?
For sure.
Me and Corey did, but I didn't ever record
I don't
with.
think so,
with,
yeah.
Not
Lisle.
that you won, not that part.
It was
I don't
never,
think.
it was a duo.
They definitely wanted the two of us together for that scene because there's so much going on. There's so much back and forth. There's so much love-hate for each other. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like that.
And there was a lot of like falling down together.
Yeah.
You know, like we would have to jump over these things. We're like,
Yeah, so can you imagine trying to do that separately, right?
and we're both like, you know, kind of You know, because if one of us is going longer, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to kind of have the same amount of impact and reaction and
it helps that we can see each other.
Yeah, we would look at each other and go, okay. And like I said, we even actually held our arms out for like 30 minutes. You try to hold your arm out for 30 minutes. It's hard. And so we would do that as we were like running, and we were like going like this as we're running to get the breath and everything. And I remember we were exhausted after the handcuff day.
That was a long day.
Yeah. It was fun.
Wow. Speaking of uncredited roles, are you aware of any like NPCs you might have played in the Shenmue games that people either haven't heard about or haven't any?
I played like 30 NPCs. No.
Yeah.
It was all you.
It was all you.
Yeah.
Not
Actually,
a lot, yeah.
Just real quick, they did. I even asked. I'm like, do you want me to do other characters? I can change my voice. I can do young. I can do old. I remember Suzuki himself said, "No, we don't want you." He said, "I don't want you to do anybody else."
Yeah.
He said, "I want you to be Hazuki all the time."
And that was good.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And you guys did a ton of stuff, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
And I don't, remember it.
Me neither.
Because it's just like dock worker or something, you know. It just goes like, hey, watch out over there.
Yeah.
And that's it. Okay, next page. You know.
Now, I remember, so I would stream on Twitch, and I'd play Shenmue, and I'd play a game. I'd be like, okay, everybody, let's see if we can spot Eric. You guys ready? and we'd listen, and I'd do a dialogue with somebody, and I was like, is that Eric? Is that Eric? I'm like, what do you guys think? What is it in the chat? Do you think it's Eric? And some people will be like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, oh, let's talk to him again. So I talk to him again, and I'm like, but he's kind of got that, he got a little bit of Ren in there. Did you hear that? Did you hear that gruff? And they're like, no, it's not Eric. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. So that was the game that we played.
It's like, where's Wally?
Yeah.
Where's Eric?
Where's Waldo?
Yeah.
But I have had people ask me and send me scenes, like videos, and say, is that you? And I'm like, I don't know. And then I listen. I'm like, yeah, I think so. Could be. It's like
Do you recall,
years ago,
Lisle, do you remember doing any like old ladies in the game? Because I remember encountering some where I'm like, this is not an old
I'm
lady.
good at old ladies. I am.
Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm sure I did.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Streaming, I was thinking, oh wait, I think that's Lisle.
Yeah.
That's her, right, guys?
But then once more, like you don't know, and then and it's not just even with Shenmue. It's like with so many other things. Once more, going back to we weren't credited. It was before IMDb. I mean, so there's a lot. It was obviously before social media, so we kind of had no way of knowing. And to this day, I still get people come up and say, I'm positive this is you. I'm like, could be. And then sometimes they tweak our voices a little bit too, so you never know. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that. So, Corey, in 2019, you returned to the role of Ryo Hazuki for Shenmue 3. And with such a gap between 2 and 3, did you find it easy or difficult to fall back into the role?
Well, no, because we spent so much time, again, Yu Suzuki asking me not to do anything other than Hazuki. First time I was in Japan was there for 4 months. Second time I was there for 3 months. I was doing the same character every day for 8 hours sometimes. So it was like riding a bicycle, you know what I mean? When I got the dialogue, I saw I was like, oh my God, well, of course, it's written down. I mean, that's Hazuki, you know? And I just fell into it, like a dream, you know what I mean? And it's just like, boom, I'm there, I'm back again. You know?
And you could find that voice, find that tone. They didn't have to do any sweetening to the...
When Yu Suzuki was there in Burbank, you know, he came up to me after we just did a few lines of recording, and we stopped, you know, and he came up to me and he's like, I'm trying to remember exactly how he put it. Of course it was through a translator, but he said something like, I'm so happy to hear that you sound exactly like Ryo, you know? And I guess it's good that I didn't, you know, smoke 20 packs of cigarettes a day or anything like that. You know, I try to take care of myself, but yeah, it's very easy for me to fall back into that again, just because I've done it so so much for so long, you know. But yeah, it's just he is still a young character, but he is going through a journey. There's a bit of maturity that he's going through, and so you know, I did change my voice. I mean, just ever so slight. I mean, if you were to play 1 and then play 3, you would probably hear it. But from 1 to 2 to 3, it's just these slightest little tiny differences, you know. I remember in Shenmue 1, they wanted me to bring up my voice because I have a little bit deeper voice than Hazuki's normal voice. So they just had me bring it up just a pitch, you know. And I remember as 2 came along, I kind of spoke just a little bit more like myself. And as 3 came along, he kind of matured a little bit more, slightly more emotionally, you know. And especially scenes with the Ren character, I remember doing those voices and of course remembering you in our scenes together, and I just had that kind of that more brotherly feeling, you know what I mean? So I remember sometimes I would do those scenes with Ren and feel that brotherly love,
and
you know,
I think for
clash.
Ryo is not really an emotional guy.
Yeah.
You know, he's very martial arts, very cool, with a kind of a tough, serious dad growing up. You know, he's not like, hey, let's go do martial arts. You know, he's you know, a very serious, kind of cool guy.
Yeah.
But when we were hanging out, our characters, when Ren and Ryo were together, Ren is just such a wild card, kind of a cut up, kind of like, screw everything, let's just kick this guy's ass, you know. And Ryo kind of loosened up, I think, when he was with Ren.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
And so I think you would see him also say, oh, Ren, oh, that Ren, you know, or something, you know.
But then he goes and does it anyway, right?
he would kind of have a little more sense of humor,
yeah,
I think, and that helped to develop the real character. You think so?
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was
for
fun.
sure.
And now, Eric, you didn't return for Shenmue 3, but fans wanted you to return so badly they actually patched you back into the game.
Yeah, we did a mod.
How did that come
Shenmue
about?
Dojo.
How did that come about?
Fun. It was fun. Well, they just called me. You know, Shenmue Dojo and Patty and those guys, they contacted me and said, you want to do it? I said, yeah. I said, well, I can't pay anything. I'm like, it's okay. It's fun. I like these guys. And so nobody got paid. It was all for the love of Shenmue. Everything. Everybody, so many people worked so hard on that for nothing but the love of doing it. And to see people like you going, yeah, that made it better somehow, you know. I hope so. So I got to do Ren and then the telephone calls with Guizan and Fukusan. And I got to play with my friends again.
Yeah.
You know, to me, I don't feel like I'm doing the voices. I just feel like they're coming out to play and I get to hang out with them and have fun, you know. And so, especially Ren's my buddy. You know, I'd go out drinking with Ren any day of the week. He's a good guy. And he's fun. And so it was a blast. And I just recorded in my home studio and send them the things. They would send me the videos of the scenes and the lines. And so I can get kind of it's already, you know, done. They can't work around me, I have to work around them. And so I had to make sure it fit into that, you know, lip syncing and that part. But I just had such a good time doing it. And everybody worked hard, and I think it came out really well. I mean, if you play it, it sounds like it's really in the game. So I think everybody did a really good job.
Absolutely.
Can I say something real quick? Like, think about what Eric just said for a moment, right? Like, you know, sometimes you guys go in and you do your job and you don't know what it is, and you get paid and it's great. I mean, you love your job, you love acting, but sometimes you, like you said, you kind of forget about it sometimes, right? But you went in and did Shenmue for free. Right? Yeah. I mean, like, would you guys go to your job for free? I mean, like, would you? I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, if you're a plumber or if you, whatever, right? Like, would you go and work for free for like 3 or 4 days? No, right? I mean, if you really loved it, right? Yeah. Well, see, here's the deal. This is what makes Shenmue a little bit different, right? Like, the way that we're talking about it, we really love it. We really care a lot about it.
And the family.
Yeah, it's a family. That's what makes Shenmue like really different.
That's why he came back after 15 years.
Yeah.
Was because the family said it must come back.
Yeah.
And it really is because of you guys.
Yeah.
Right? That's the only reason.
And I think also on this side too, like the cast-wise, I feel like we actually really, really enjoy working together. We really enjoy each other.
Yeah.
Like all of us, Paul Lucas, like some of the, incredible people that were on this, like we really do like each other. And I think that, that's a family aspect of it too. And I think there's that synergy between such an incredible fandom, like fan base. You guys have been so supportive. And for us too, we want to work. We would love to work together again at any time, anywhere, So I think it's both sides.
And Suzuki-san wrote an incredible story.
Oh yeah.
So ahead of his time.
So we're interested. What's going to happen next?
Yeah.
We want to know.
Let's jump to that question.
And we love those
what
stories.
are your hopes for Shenmue 4?
Hopes for Shenmue 4.
Well, I wasn't even in Shenmue 3, so
your hope is to be in Shenmue 4.
Exactly. Start from the
I was kind of hoping for the animation a little bit. No, it didn't work. But so I don't have any hope. But I'm still a member of the family.
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with everybody, like with many of you, and people come to Japan who are, Shenmue fans on their, sojourn or their journey, go to Doibuita Street and Yokohama and everything, and I always end up having a bite or a drink with them, and we hang out, and it's fun.
Hashtag Kelso for 4.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it. Hell, I'd do it for free.
How about a Fukusan side story where it's what Fukusan's doing during the events of 2 and 3?
He's getting a dojo going.
Yeah.
He's got to fight
joins
off
the Yakuza or something.
So fast.
Whoa, that's
crossover.
That's a switch.
Yeah, there you go.
He's
like a
running
dragon.
Yokosuka.
Yeah, he's running Yokosuka now.
And then
Come on, you guys, get more guns.
And then Hazuki's got to come back and be like, what? Oh man,
Fukusa,
What's happening here?
I left. Look what
Times are
happened.
rough. Gotta adapt.
Son's turning tricks on the corner.
Oh man.
Oh boy, this took a turn.
Yeah,
Brutal.
It's gone down.
Took a turn.
We need Yo to come and save us.
I know there's fans in the audience. Some might have questions, so I don't know if we have a microphone for Q&A. Talking to the control panel over there.
Or they can just yell it out.
Or they can yell it out, and I'll repeat it for the microphone here. So if you have any questions, why don't you come up here and line up? If you don't, then... Yeah, and in the meantime... Actually, here, if you have a question, why don't you come on up? Or ask it from there.
Hi, I was just wondering, because I know Corey, your daughter, actually voiced a little part in Shenmue 3.
She did. Yeah.
I just want to see, how does that come around? And maybe
Oh my
Eric
gosh,
or
amazing.
Lisle, you all have made connections to help other out to come into the voice acting business?
Yeah.
So Corey's daughter was in Shenmue 3, and how that came about. That was the question.
Yeah. My daughter is an actress, and she's kind of started following me a little bit. She's also in dance as well, but she had done TV. She had been in a few shows, music videos, a couple of commercials, all that kind of stuff. And I was doing Shenmue. I was actually doing Shenmue 3, and I noticed that there were some kids in the villages and some young girls around Katana's age, and I was like, hey, wait a minute.
I know a kid.
Yeah,
In a village.
and Katana had put together a little voice demo, and she did an audition. She did a voice audition. She didn't end up getting that one, it was really good. I don't know why she didn't get it, but maybe they went in a different direction or something. She surprised me. But I actually sent that into the voice director, Bill Black, who was there being the director there in Burbank. And he listened to her, and I was like, oh, yeah, she's great. Yeah, bring her in. And she did a couple of different characters. She did a younger character. She did the one that you play hide and seek with. You find her up on the roof. So that's Katana, my daughter. And there's a scene where Hazuki's doing a QTE and he runs into a young boy and the boy cries because Hazuki runs into him. Oh, that was also Katana. Yeah. So yeah, she played more characters in Shenmue than I did. So.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah, so she beat me, you know.
That's awesome.
And she did it when she was like 11 or something.
So cute.
Wow.
Such a cute girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
A great name,
Katana, yeah.
If you have any other questions, you can come on up. Otherwise, they are going to be in the guest room over there, so you can ask any questions that you may have. Otherwise, I had a little game I thought we could play. But if you have a question, why don't you come on up first? Yeah, go ahead.
Nice.
Come on up, bling bling.
So this is for Lisle.
Yes. And thank you for pronouncing my name correctly.
How difficult is it to jump between voicing fighting game characters for Tekken and Virtua Fighter?
Not too difficult. Like I feel like, so. Say for instance, so Virtua Fighter, Sarah is a little bit similar to Joy, I feel. Like they're actually very close to me. Like I'm a smartass, as you can probably tell. And I feel like there's a lot of that in Sarah, there's a lot of that in Joy. Nina, I feel has quite a bit similarity to Shuing, actually. Like I had, even though they're very different, but they're extremely serious about things, and they're not as smart-assy, you know what I mean? So there was, but then like doing Christy and Zafina were kind of different for me, but I think like for the main characters, it wasn't that different, and I think that I carried quite a bit.
Okay. I don't know if I can also ask for Paul.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
He's also Tekken Virtua Fighter.
Paul and Jackie Tekken. Yeah, very different characters.
Yeah.
Jackie's kind of like the, hey, come on, you know, and Paul is like, I'm the toughest in the universe. You know? So,
it's such a Tekken thing.
It's a very Tekken thing. So the characters are so different. So that was not hard. It was kind of really fun.
Nice.
But yeah, thanks.
Okay.
Thank you for the question.
Yeah.
So before we wrap things up, I just ran. Oh, we have one more? Oh, the cameraman has a present question.
Yes, Mr. Cameraman.
Yeah, no problem. Just real quick, y'all actually played, I've played a lot of fighting games, and he asked one of my questions, so thank you, brother. Another question I have for y'all is, how much of the fighting game characters do y'all get to like dictate on how they like voice their lines and stuff? Because there's a lot of good lines.
Okay, so what sort of say do they have in the script? Is it really locked down, or can you kind of deviate from it? I mean, I know Lisle talks about the English that she'll sometimes encounter.
Yes.
And those characters have a lot of personality. So
Yes. So actually with Nina, so with Sarah and a lot of the other characters, like I had no say. With Nina, actually, it was really fun because I think the first time I went in to record for Nina, it was like in an outside studio, and at that time I was doing a lot of boxing because I was really, really into it, and so I know exactly, right? Yeah, and
I've seen some pictures of you.
Exactly.
Oh, she was
I was so into it. I loved hitting things. I did not hit people, don't worry. But that was for my playtime. But
that's why she wasn't successful in her career.
Correct.
The person would be, ooh, never want to hit the person.
Exactly. But and I just remember it was so funny because I was scheduled to do Nina. And I also used to like whiz around on this super pimped out, awesome mountain bike, right? That was leopard print, red and black. It was just like awesome. So I roll up to the studio just as the people from Namco Bandai are coming in, and with these huge leopard print gloves like on my shoulder, and they went bonkers. They were like, "Oh, Lisa sounds so much like Nina!" Right? And it was like this funny moment. And then after that, they did ask me, they're like, can you give us some lines that you would say, right? smart ass. So I'm like, okay. So it's coming up. Like, isn't it past your bedtime? I think like those kind of lines, like I would write them down, and yeah. So that was the only time. Other than that, like, what about you, Eric?
Yeah, we have to fix broken English sometimes just to repair it, just to make it so it doesn't sound too goofy. And every now and then we get to write lines. We do the acting, so we give the character its character, but we aren't the director, and sometimes we will disagree with what we have to do.
A lot of times, yeah.
But they say, no, we want you to do it that way. And we'll say, okay.
What's the craziest thing that y'all looked at that they wanted y'all to say for the character, and you're like, nah, I ain't saying that?
Well, we actually encountered several of those on Shenmue as well.
Yeah, what
weird stuff.
Remember?
Well, we did talk about the sailors. We did talk about sailors.
Oh, I'm looking for sailors.
Yeah, because he's looking for sailors the whole time. And we actually stopped and we were like, so...
It's okay.
Yeah, it's cool, but I mean, it sounds like he's,
looking for
he's looking for a special type of sailor, because I mean, in the States, we have some double entendres and stuff. I mean, even like, we all know the Village People and all that stuff, YMCA, and in the Navy and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I mean, we have a bit more of a culture of that, I think. You know what I mean? So when he's going looking for sailors, we had to talk about it. So just stuff like that. They're like, yeah, we understand, but we want you to do it that way. It
moves the story along, and
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And I remember Guizon. Oh man, now I'm gonna get into it.
Get into it.
Guizon was teaching him the swallow. Do you remember that? There was the swallow technique.
That's where we're on the docks.
Yeah.
And I said, do you want to screw around, or do you want to learn a new move? Yeah.
So I remember that day we were laughing about him looking for sailors and Guizon teaching him to swallow. Yeah. It was just so bad.
Wow.
And now I'm getting warm just thinking about it.
I mean, it's
and
I think it was a T-rated game, not an M-rated.
I know.
And when you're in the studio, you're in this box. People are looking at you through this glass. You're in like kind of a fishbowl.
Yeah.
And the air goes thin sometimes, and you're just paper at page after page, and it's a microphone here, and you get a bit silly.
Yeah.
You get a bit stir crazy kind of, and after a while you kind of get the giggles.
Oh,
and things. So yeah. So sometimes it's really funny. We have to. Okay, let's do this.
Yeah. Especially when you work in Japan. You've been working in Japan for a long time. You already know that there could be some English in your future soon.
Like in the movie Lost in Translation.
Which I was in. Thank you very much.
Well, she was in that. Remember the end of the movie?
Hot business lady.
I know, sexy businesswoman.
Where Bill Murray is in the hotel at the elevators, and this hot blonde woman walks up to him and says, "Oh, you're that guy, aren't you?" Kind of. That was her.
Excuse me, aren't you Bob Harris? Oh my gosh, I'm such a big fan of yours. Blah, 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 blah. And he's like, shut up, woman. And he leaves. And he's the first person I ever saw that movie with. Remember? It was Eric.
They gave her a preview video copy before it came out in theaters. And I went over to her place, we had a drink, and we watched the movie. And that was fun. Thank you.
Nice.
So fun. That was so fun.
Nice.
Thank you.
Oh, Patrick.
Before we end the panel, this is a request for Eric Kelso and Lisle Wilkerson.
Yes.
Eric, can you let out the biggest yeah?
Oh, there we go.
Watch the mic. Watch the microphone.
Biggest Yahoo.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we do it together? No, just kidding.
One at a time.
Yeah, and Yahoo.
Okay. Yeah! Come on!
Yahoo! Better run home to mama now.
And could we get an I see from Corey?
Super cool.
Oh, throat loss.
Yes, take.
I see.
Well, thank you so much to our panelists here.
Thank you, man.
We have Lisle Wilkerson, Eric Kelso, Corey Marshall, the voices of Shenmue, and many more. Thank you so much for joining us. They will be in the other room over there. You can ask any other questions and get autographs and all those sorts of things.
Thank you, Barry.
Yeah.
Thank you for hosting, and thank you guys all for coming. We
Thank
really
you so
appreciate it.
much,
Thank you
guys.
for your
Thank you.
support over the years.
Oh, of course.
Sorry we didn't get to do the cool.